Good morning and welcome to West Hills Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. It is so wonderful to be with you today. I am the Reverend Tracy Springberry. I use the pronouns she and her, and it is my great pleasure to serve you this morning. And I want you to all say good morning to each other in the chat. You just have an opportunity, whether you can't see each other, but you are together. So please say good morning and say great joy, because we are in such a different world this morning than we were when we greeted each other last Sunday morning. This Sunday morning, people who feared being deported from their homes are feeling just a little bit safer. This morning, people from Muslim majority countries are now welcome to visit our country. Families who haven't been able to see each other because their Muslim children lived here can now visit this country. I have friends who are in that category. This Sunday, there is a national COVID response. This Sunday, families who've been struggling with hunger to the point of needing to steal food from grocery stores are getting a little more support for food in their families. This is a new world this Sunday. Good morning, and it is so good to be with you today. And I want you to all know that you are so welcome here, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter where you came from, and whether you were with your family this morning or whether you were alone in your house, whether you are happy today, or whether you're struggling with pain and sickness or depression or sadness. You're welcome whether you're new to watching our services or you've been here a really long time. Everyone is welcome. If you are new, go to our website and email our administrator. She can get you on our email list so you can join with our small groups, which is the foundation of our congregation right now. And you can get to know people and be part of our community. Another way to be part of our community is to join us for coffee hour after the service. That's where we share our joys and sorrows, and we talk about the service, and we get in small groups and share what's going on in our lives. And I'm going to light the chalice this morning with the words from the Reverend Ashley Horan. She says, "Another world is possible. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible." I am lighting this chalice off camera, and you will see it in a moment. Here you go. Here's our chalice lit. And I'd like you to join me in saying our affirmation. Let us open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. Let us open our hearts to love one another. And we're going to take a tiny pause because I have some things to say to you. But my computer has just informed me that it is going to run out of batteries, and I am going to plug it in. One pause. This is the high-tech world we live in. So I wanted to share with you a little something. I decided this last Monday to give myself a little joy. So it was just a couple days before the inauguration, and I climbed into the back of a friend's car. We wore our masks, we rolled down the windows, and we drove into the sun. It was a beautiful day, up to Mount Hood to go cross-country skiing. I had not cross-country skied in 5 or 6 years, but I was not a novice or anything. I started skiing when I was 6 years old, in the first grade. However, for the last couple of years, my daughter and I had really focused on downhill skiing. But I just love cross-country skiing. I love the cold, crisp air. I love how it engages your whole body. I love how exhilarating and quiet it is. I was so happy. But it really went badly. From the very moment that I put my skis on, they slid this way and that, and I couldn't get them under control. I fell down. My friend didn't know how to snowplow, and I had been snowplowing for really almost 50 years. But when I put my skis in that classic high shape, they didn't slow down or turn. My skis aren't behaving right, I told my friend when I fell down for the third time. They'd been in storage for 6 years. They had been moved across 2 states. They could have been rather banged up. Maybe I should have had them look at that, I thought. Then I began to wonder if maybe it wasn't my skis. Maybe it was the way I was skiing on them. I had been downhill skiing for several years after all, and I expected my skis to grip the snow with the command of my legs and hips, which really isn't a cross-country skiing thing. Maybe this was all about me. So we came to another small downhill, and then the trail went into an uphill, and I had done this hundreds of times. You put your ski in the tracks, you bend your knees, you lean forward, and you go as fast as you can to get up the other hill. So I got in the tracks, I bent my knees, I leaned forward, and I went, and I lost control almost immediately. My skis flew out from under me. I landed on my back and on my arm, and my ski pole was way up the hill behind me. And laying in the cold snow, I knew immediately that I had broken my right wrist. There was something about the pain, something about the way the wrist didn't really move. I thought as I lay there, I couldn't say, of course I broke my wrist. It's 2020. So what was I supposed to say? It was exactly, actually, 48 hours before the inauguration. So far, 2021 had been exactly like 2020. Or maybe it had been worse. Could that even be a thing? Could it have been worse? But with an insurrection, 400,000 deaths from COVID at a rate of nearly 4,000 a day, a windstorm that tore up 100-year-old pines in my hometown and other trees all over the Northwest, and now my broken wrist. I could at least say things had not improved. Join in singing with Kira and people from our congregation.
Come gather round people wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing.
Writers and critics who prophesize with your pens, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin, and there's no telling who that it's naming, for the loser now, maybe later to win, and the times they are a-changing.
Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. For he that gets hurt will be he who is stalled. The battle outside raging will soon shake your windows and rattle your walls, for the times they are a-changing.
From mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you don't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can lend your hand, for the times they are changing.
The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast, as the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are a-changing.
For the times they are a-changing.
Hi, everyone. It is so good to be with you today. Today, I'm going to share a story by Mina Harris, who is Madam Vice President Kamala Harris's niece. If you, like me, were glued to your TV on Wednesday for the inauguration, watching our first female vice president and the first vice president of South Asian descent get sworn in was a tearful, joyous moment. I want to share this story with you today, both to honor Vice President Harris, but also for our kids who sometimes feel so powerless. This is a story about children changing their community for the better by taking small steps and asking for what they need. I hope that you feel like WHUUF is a place where you can ask for what you need, where there are adults and community members who are able to help you get there. This is Kamala and Maya's Big Idea. Words by Mina Harris and illustrated by Ana Ramirez Gonzalez. You know what should be out there? Kamala asked her sister Maya. Us, said Maya. A slide, said Kamala. And a swing, Maya added. A playground, they shouted together. Kamala and Maya had an idea. It was a very good idea and a very big idea. They were going to need help. Wouldn't it be great if there was a playground in the courtyard, Maya said. That does sound nice, Mommy agreed. How can we make that happen? Kamala asked. Well, I suppose the first step would be to ask the landlord, the person who owns the building. So Kamala and Maya wrote a letter and Maya drew a picture and they went to see the landlord to discuss their idea. The landlord thought about it for less than a second. I don't think so. No. That was not the answer they wanted, but they weren't ready to give up. That night, the sisters tried to think of ways to turn a no into a yes. They asked the other kids in the building if they wanted a playground in the courtyard. Did they? Of course they did. And they had ideas too. Let's have a teeter-totter and a basketball hoop and flowers. So Kamala wrote a longer letter, and they went to see the landlord together. Dear landlord, right now the courtyard in front of our building is empty and no one uses it. If there were swings, kids could fly high. If there was a sandbox, kids could build. If there was a slide, kids could go so far, so fast. Can you build it, please? The landlord thought about it for less than 5 seconds. A project like this big is expensive. We don't have the money for that. Do your parents know you're here? This was not the answer they wanted, but Kamala was not ready to give up. If we ask our parents to do it and do it all ourselves, can we fix up the courtyard? The landlord thought about it for a whole 10 seconds. Finally, he shrugged. If you can do it yourselves, sure. This wasn't exactly the answer they wanted, but it was a start. The kids all spoke to their parents about their ideas for the courtyard. They hung up posters and knocked on neighbors' doors. But they got the same answer from everyone. I'm sorry. Wow, that's a big job. Wish I could help, which they knew meant no, no, no. But then Mr. Green stopped to talk. I work construction and I could maybe get some scrap lumber and some sand for a sandbox. Really? Kamala asked. Yes, exclaimed Maya. Okay, I'll try. But it wasn't a yes. But right now, maybe was the sweetest word they'd ever heard. Maybe gave them hope. The next weekend, maybe turned into yes. The kids all helped measure, and Mr. Green cut the boards. Then they sanded and hammered and sanded some more. Then came the actual sand. They were all thanking Mr. Green when Miss Lopez stopped to talk. I work at a garage. Maybe they have an extra tire for a teeter-totter. Another maybe. In the weeks that followed, lots of I don't knows turned into maybes and then yeses. No one could do everything, but everyone could do something. Kamala and Maya wanted everyone to celebrate the new playground, so they made another big poster inviting their neighbors to a potluck party. There were hot dogs and hummus, spicy chicken and potato salad, strawberries and brownies and lemonade. Mrs. Flores set up a sprinkler for the kids to run through. Mr. Green brought the music. Kamala admired the new playground, but she noticed there was something still missing. But no one knew how to make a slide. But Miss Flores knew they might buy one. I teach at Emerson Elementary, and they were redoing their playground. Maybe we could buy the old slide. This was a different kind of maybe. How can we afford that maybe? But now everyone was trying to find a way to turn that maybe into a yes. These brownies are delicious. Maybe we could have a bake sale. We could all bring toys and books and have a sidewalk sale. No one can do everything, but everyone could contribute something. When the slide arrived at last, Maya and Kamala got the first ride. The landlord was impressed. Whoopsies, sorry, that's upside down. I want to shake your hands, girls. You did a good job. You all did a good job. Kamala and Maya had an idea. It was a very good idea and a very big idea, and with lots of help, they made it happen. Hooray for Kamala and Maya. Hooray for the persisters. What's next, Kamala? Kamala, looking up, said, I'm wondering what the view is like from the roof. Kamala's view is from a whole different roof now, in a whole different city, in a whole different world. And we are so excited to get to watch her dream big dreams, and I am so excited to get to watch all of you dream big dreams.
I love that story. So back to my wrist. I handled it just like I handled everything in 2020. It just went on. Not much else to do. Got up, walked out. Tried to enjoy the sun on the snow as I went. The cap of Mount Hood rose above the trees. I watched the Columbia River wink and wave at me as we drove back to Portland and to the emergency room. I was gracious and kind to the people at the hospital. We joked about this and that. I really don't remember now what. We just laughed a lot. It wasn't until later, until after they knocked me out and set my wrist and put it in a splint, which looks like this. And when I was half awake under those warm emergency room covers that they put in the incubator to make all hot, and when I was listening to the murmurs of the nurses' voices, that I cried. I was safe. Everything was okay. Everything had been managed. And so I could just release all those emotions, and I just cried. And it's been like that for me off and on since Wednesday morning. That tender place in me that I have kept protected behind managing, getting through every crisis, every setback in my values, watching people get hurt when they didn't have to, watching people in my family get hurt, people in my community get hurt when they didn't have to. All of that has opened up, and I've been crying in relief, but also in sadness and grief for all those things that got lost in that time. It meant so much to me on Wednesday morning to have a president who called for a moment of silence for all the losses of the pandemic. I needed that so much. It meant so much to me to have a president who called for unity in the face of crisis and who didn't call the other side the bad guys, but just other people who are suffering. It meant so much to me to have a president who said, because there's one thing about life, there's no accounting for what fate will deal you. And how I knew that on Wednesday morning. And some days you'll need a hand. It meant so much to me to have a president who went back to the White House after all that ritual and ceremony and began signing executive orders to take care of the pandemic and suffering people and a suffering earth. So let us take a moment to pray or reflect, as is our own tradition. Dear Spirit of love and life, thank you so much for lightness and relief and joy. The past days have been so bright with sun, and so have our hearts. Remind us to feel joy, to laugh, to play, to celebrate. And please also hear our prayer. Please let it be true that people and the earth will be taken care of. Please let it be true our country will take this pandemic seriously and bring it under control so people can stop dying and we can be together. Spirit of love and life, hold all of us with great gentleness during this time of transition. Remind us that such changes can come with so many emotions. From relief to joy, to grief, to rage. We don't have to grit our teeth anymore and just manage. We don't have to harden down waiting for the next crisis. We can let go. We can feel. During this time, hold particularly gentle survivors of sexual assault, bullying, racial profiling and assault, narcissistic and emotional abuse, and all the others who have protected their tenderness as each day's reminders of their abuse shouted from the highest office in the land. For now, their pain is free to flow. Also hold gently all those who spent their lives working for racial justice, for environmental justice, for human rights, for immigrant justice and economic justice, and watch so many of our gains washed away. For now, the pain is free to flow. In spirit of life and love, give us all courage, for a new America is being born. A new America where all people, no matter the color of their skin, their gender, their sexual orientation, their education, their economic status, their abilities, or other differences, will be able to flourish. Give us all the courage to bring our gifts to creating this new and wondrous world. And let us now say the names into the silence of the people who we are holding particularly in our hearts. And you can write them in the chat if you would like.
The river is flowing, flowing and growing. The river is flowing down to the sea. Father, carry me, child, I will always be. Mother, carry me down to the sea.
This is a moment of transition. We need collective renewal, accountability, and a strong moral vision for this country that we could become. Each of us has a role in building an America where we all are safe and free. And we will only succeed if we lead with the ethic of love. Valerie Kaur. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one that we were left. Amanda Gorman.
I see trees of green, red roses. the bright blessed day, the dark scary night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh yeah.
Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
The world is so full of beauty and grace and kindness and justice, as well as pain and tragedy and meanness and hardness. A kind man stopped to help me after I broke my wrist and went looking for help. My friend drove me to and from the hospital. She fed me and watched me overnight, even though it was COVID. Then my son and wife volunteered to come and be with me and figure out what it was I could and could not do without a right hand. And I knew that even though I live alone, I am not alone because I have this community. I know if I need something to get through these weeks without a right hand, that I can reach out and ask for help, and I will receive it. Each night in my prayers, I ask to know that I am held. And it was a blessing for me to know as I cracked my wrist on that hard ice that I was held. My heart breaks so often with the pain of the world. I so easily put my feet in other people's shoes. That is the greatest gift of the imagination, I suppose. To imagine how it is to be someone else. I imagine the cold and dampness of living in a tent on the side of the freeway in the winter when nothing ever gets quite dry and one is always chilled to the bone. I imagine the exhaustion of being a single mother, living in a one-bedroom apartment with 3 children and losing your job because of COVID. And then always scrambling for bits of food and money just to hold things together and not having enough coins even to do the laundry at the laundromat 4 blocks away. I imagine the fear of living undocumented with American children and always afraid that some government official is going to snatch you off the streets and take you away from them with no notice. I want to live in a country that holds its people. That when someone falls, they are caught. I broke my wrist and I've been caught. I have friends and family. I have a community. I have health insurance. I'm not afraid. And I want everyone to be held just like that. This week, I'm so hopeful. The president has taken immediate action to make things a little bit better for suffering people and the suffering land. And maybe more people will be held. And I always want that. I always want everyone to be held. I have really been drawn to the work of Valerie Kaur. She is a Sikh lawyer and a human rights activist. She was 20 on September 11th, 2001. Her uncle was killed in the first hate crime after those attacks. And she has devoted the rest of her life fighting hate. When Donald Trump was elected in 2016, she delivered an impassioned talk that went viral, where she asked if maybe the pain that we were feeling in that moment was not the pain of death, but the pain of labor. That maybe the pain was the pain of transition, that time and labor, when the contractions are happening so quickly that it's hard to get your breath and manage the pain at all, or even get any sense of what it is or how to be in that pain. It can be terrifying without support. And I have really appreciated and held on to this metaphor. In 2008, our country elected a Black man president. 8 years later, our country elected a man president who actively used racism and xenophobia to attract his followers. At the insurrection he incited just 2.5 weeks ago, avowed white supremacists carried the Confederate flag through the US Capitol. But on this past Wednesday, on those same Capitol steps, a Black, South Asian, American woman took the oath of vice president before a Latina Supreme Court justice. Those are images of a country laboring for its soul. Will we birth a future that looks like America's past, where a few get to truly pursue life, liberty, and happiness, or where everyone gets to pursue life, liberty, and happiness? It takes so much more to build the world we dream of than the election of one president, who, as we know, is going to work with a very challenging Congress and diverse state and local governments and an extremely divided American public who's working with very different ideas about what is true and not true about our world. What also gave me hope this week was I attended the People's Inauguration, which was created by Valerie Kaur. And I watched national activists take an oath to heal, reimagine, and rebuild our country and preserve, protect, and defend dignity, justice, and joy with love. I participated later as Oregon activists who were gathered through the Interfaith Movement for Immigrant Justice, an organization that WHUUF is part of, who took a similar oath. People working together with a shared vision can change our country. That's the only way anything ever changes, is when people work together with a shared vision of what can be, when we reimagine and when we heal what's been. Just think about Kamala and Maya's playground. Kamala and Maya fiercely had a vision, and they gathered all those other children into their vision. And then they pulled all their parents and neighbors into that vision. Oh, they heard no after no after no. All the reasons it could not possibly happen. Too expensive, not enough time. You know all the reasons. But they held to the vision. They were persistent. And finally, they got a few maybes. Some people heard inside their minds some possibilities. Well, maybe there's some sand at my work. Maybe there's a few pieces of wood. I could throw those the children's way. And then other people began to see possibilities. And there were more possibilities. And after a while, there was a playground. There was a vision, persistence, possibilities, and yeses. That's really how it works. Valerie Kerr and a group of mostly people of color and other activists, writer, organizers all across our country are working to build a new America. Not the America of the past, the America that was promised, when all sorts of people from all over the world can come together and flourish. It's an America that isn't based on making money and getting wealthy, but America based on taking care of what matters, each other and the earth, and our joy in our relationships with each other and the planet that we care about. And this is not easy. So much damage has been done. This continent was taken from people through genocide. So many have been wounded, those who were enslaved, those who were brought here and who labored under harsh, harsh conditions. Do you know the major reason the National Guard has been brought out in this country? Mostly has been to bring down labor protests. I think 90% of the time or something. Don't quote me, but it's almost like that. Violence in the street because people wanted to get paid for their labor. That's not the America we dream of. There's so much hurt and so many wounds that have to be healed to bring in the America we dream of, and that is hard work. Wounds run deep. It's not easy, but it's deep, and it's meaningful, and it's spiritual. It's spiritual because it's about the connections that matter. It's about the web. And anything that builds and creates the web is spiritual work. It's our work. It's the work of faith communities. It's about building relationships with all kinds of different people with different kinds of experiences, ones that we cannot understand, maybe don't even really value, but have to learn how to do that. It's about looking into our own souls and our own ways of being and our own assumptions and finding out why it's hard to be in those relationships with different kinds of people. That's part of what it takes to build that new America. And it's also about imagining the interconnected web in new ways that maybe we can't really imagine now, but we have to keep pushing out our imagination, keep growing it. It's about those things, and it's also about taking on power, which is one of the things Amanda Gorman talks about in her poem that touched us all so deeply. It's one of the things that Valerie Kerr is very clear about, that Martin Luther King Jr. was very clear about. It's not all nice. It's not all sweet. The power holds on to their power fiercely. And so you have to be fierce back, but with love, which is not violent, but it's clear and it's boundaried. And when we take on power, we can fix the torn and tattered pieces of the web. It's intentional and it's difficult work, but it's meaningful. It's deep and it builds our souls and it builds our connections in ways we can't imagine. This work is about figuring out what our particular gifts are and what our light is and how we want it to shine in the world so that we can help create this new America. In the words of an extremely famous musical, we are so lucky to be alive right now because there is so much to do. So I invite you to hope, which I imagine so many of you are. It's such a hopeful moment, I feel like. When I'm not I've been smiling so much since Wednesday, and then I'm crying and smiling, all these emotions, when I'm not taking a lot of Advil because my wrist hurts. But I invite you with me to hope, to celebrate, to learn, to lean into those uncomfortable, kind of difficult parts that help us grow and build that new America. It's such a blessing to us to be able to bless the world and bless ourselves. It feels so more possible today than it did 3 weeks ago. So what are our gifts as a group, as a congregation? And what are our gifts as individuals, as people? What can we bring? And what is our light as a congregation, as individuals? What lights us up? And what light can we bring to this new America? And how are we going to help our new president, our new vice president, and all those people who've taken that oath to heal and reimagine a new America, one where everybody gets to flourish? How are we going to keep that hope alive and growing, and not just read the newspaper where they're like, Congress isn't going to let us, blah, 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 and we get down and apathetic, which can happen so easily, right? But we can grow and hope and lean into the building of that new America and hold on to this. Life is always a question of what we do now and how we hold on to what is hopeful and good. And I want us to answer it fiercely with love and laughter and joy. Let us be the light. And we're going to hear from a beautiful singer about being the light.
Hey, you guys, Leah here. So I must be among millions, if not billions of people who tuned in to the inauguration yesterday on January 20th, 2021. And I was inspired by every moment of it, but especially rapt and lifted, exalted, just completely fixated and moved by Amanda Gorman's poem, her presence, her beauty, her artistry. And so this song was born. There is always a light when we are ready to see it. There is always a light when we are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night, to climb this hill, together we will. Shine your light in the dark. We are ready to see it. Shine your light in the dark. We are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a gift. Together we will. There is always your light. There is always we are ready to see it. There is always your light. There is always we are ready to be it. To see the light, to be the light, to raise our eyes in the dark of night and be a gift. Till we will. There is always light. There is always dark. There is always shine your light. There is always dark. To see the light, to be the light, to shine around the dark of night and be a climb this hill. Together we will. There is always shine your light. There is always shine. There is always shine your light. There is always shine. Be the light.
This is the time in our service when we pause to reflect on the gifts we have received from this abundant earth and the generous spirit of family and community, to consider what it is that we have given and what it is that we have received. And we are reminded that it was love that built the fires that warm us, and love that planted the trees that shade us. WHUUF exists because of the generous spirit and commitment of our founders and those who came before us, as our future health depends on the dedication and commitment of those here now. During the musical interlude, please consider the gifts that you have to offer our WHUUF community. Whether it be financial support or the special gift of your time or talent, know that we are grateful for your offering. Let us speak together our affirmation of gratitude and giving. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for all those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Another world is possible. We say it again and again, even when the truth is somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. We extinguish the light of this chalice, but not the warmth and imagination of our faith, nor our commitment to its principles. These we will carry with us until we meet again.
Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet